Gary, thanks once again for taking time and be part of this is our second um, book club. We are planning to do it every month. So, I mean, I couldn't think of anyone better than you to bring as a first. I did the first one, the second one is yours, and I couldn't think of anyone better than. And to start and to set up the agenda, the way we do it is we leave it open to the author to come and talk about a little bit about their book. We do a little quick moderated Q&A, which I will drive for this session. And then we will open it up for questions. So the idea is everyone to ask engaging questions from you and hopefully implement and learn and read your book after this session if they have not already done it. So to get started, my first question is, in less than a minute, tell us about who Gary is. Just a very simple introduction.
All right. So first off, Mata, thank you so much for the invitation. I wish you could be there to start every single session that I do with groups around the world. So especially some of the people who lead large organizations, they would truly benefit from that kind of mindfulness. So, and Rita, thank you for the invitation. So, in a minute or less, which my wife would say is always a challenge for me, I'm a husband. I'm a father of a 27-year-old, amazing wife, amazing 27-year-old, and then I have a number of hats professionally that I wear. The author of The Next Rules of Work, which we'll be discussing. I'm the chair for the Future of Work with Singularity University. I've got 9, now 10 courses on LinkedIn Learning, a new one launching in just a few weeks, with over 1.3 million learners. And I'm the co-founder of a company called eParachute, which I'm sure we'll talk about as well, which is built from the knowledge of a book called What Color is Your Parachute, which is sort of the world's enduring career manual. And I have the benefit of lecturing, consulting with and meeting people all around the world. I did 153 lectures and interviews last year, and many of them on site. And so that's given me a tremendous lens on how each of us individually is dealing with these unique times.
Wonderful, wonderful. So I know you mentioned about multiple hats that you wear, but let's start with one of the first hat as a son that you wore, and when your dad wrote the book, What Color is My Parachute? So tell us a little bit about that book. And before you do that, I'm sure many of you have read this chapter in my own book, Career Interrupted. It is Core Competency. And the chapter starts with a quote from Richard Bolles, who is father of Gary. So I'm going to just read the quote from Richard. Always define what you want to do with your life and what you have to offer to the world in terms of your favorite talents, gifts, skills, not in terms of job title. And he has created a very relevant, I would say not even creative and nice, but still something that is so relevant, that was created in 70s. The book was created in 70s. And his famous flower petal exercise, which includes the following areas. Petal number 1, goal, purpose, or mission in life. Petal number 2, favorite knowledges or fields of interest. Petal number 3, favorite transferable skills, which many women have heard me say over and over again. The transferable skills are so relevant. Petal number 4, preferred kinds of people to work with. Petal number 5, favorite working conditions. Number 6, preferred salary range. And number 7, preferred place to live. In my opinion, preferred place to live is not something people look into when they're analyzing their job, the things that they're going to work on. So back to my question, Gary, tell us a little bit about your childhood, what it was growing up, learning that amazing knowledge.
So my father was a recovering minister. he had been at a cathedral here in San Francisco, where I still live, and was laid off in a budget crunch. Went to go write a little pamphlet to help other ministers who were being laid off in budget crunches, and ended up writing the world's enduring career manual. And he self-published the first one, and then, as Rena said, in 1970s, he started to do a new version every single year. As a matter of fact, one of his favorite jokes was that he had written 42 different books. They just all had the same title, because he always wanted it to be reflective of the challenges and opportunities in every year, and always used the best techniques. So when I was a teenager, I was actually trained in his methods when I was 19 years old. So imagine you're 19 years old and you learn how to be able to help people in their 40s and 50s to be able to reinvent themselves and to think about the next step in their careers. Of course, your takeaway should be that you should do what you love. Now, my father and I, there are fathers and sons that can work well together. It didn't work out so well the first time. So I went off to Silicon Valley and pretty much wore every hat that you can wear in the technology. And then, sort of going full circle, I ended up being asked to serve as the chair for the future of work for Singularity University, because I'd been lecturing quite a bit on the future of learning, the future of work, and the future of the organization. And so my father and I ended up sort of regrafting the process of figuring out how to bring his work to people online. And we started a company that's called eParachute. And as a matter of fact, I'll give you the link, but there is so I've actually recorded a course, the flower course that Rena just mentioned is actually online. And so we always want to make sure that it's always accessible to people. So if there's any issues, if you did want to go through this process, but there's any issues with cost, you just can email our admin Kersey, and we'll get you a cheaper or free code. But we just want to make sure people have access to my father's insights about exactly what Rena was talking about, these sort of 7 different facets of you and how you can go through meaningful career change.
Wonderful. So I know it was quite an experience for a 19-year-old to be nurturing people in their 40s. So tell us about when you came to Singularity and your journey of your book, The Next Rules of Work, which is quite relevant. We want to know how, especially women who were on a career break for so long, they not only lose touch with the real world experience, but there's a confidence. There's so many things that goes on in their life. And how do they come back with a full force where they can know what's going to be the future? And that's very relevant for our discussion. And how should they plan their future workforce, not what they want to be, what they were before? So help us understand a little bit on that.
Absolutely. So, so my journey with the book, I had been lecturing frequently through Singularity University and a number of other organizations around the world. And my wife and I, who is my business partner, and she's our managing partner, and she runs the sort of world-class events that we do, the conferences that we put together. We did a conference on the future of work that we called Fulcrum in Detroit, in the US, in November of 2019. And I don't know if anybody can remember that far back, but in December of 2019, my wife said 2 things, very brilliant things. First off, let's not do an in-person event in 2020. Proved to be quite prescient. And the other is, I have rented you an Airbnb for a month and you're going to go write a book. And because, as she says, it's in your head, it needs to get out on paper. And so I wrote 100,000 words in a month, and then did a bunch of lecturing and consulting as the pandemic took hold, and then got the book published late 2021. And then for the past year, a little over a year, I've been trying to bring a lot of the ideas sort of baked into it. So let me give you the framing of the book. Think of these as kind of actionable opportunities, and then let's talk specifically about the challenges and opportunities of a relaunch, right? Of a career and personal relaunch. So the framing of the book is sort of in three, I call them legs of the stool of personal and organizational change. Mindset, skill set, and tool set. And the reason that these three are important is the mindset is the way that we prepare ourselves for situations or encountering other people. And so if you have a fixed mindset and you like things to be the same every single day, there's nothing wrong with that. But along comes a virus and suddenly we're not prepared. But if you have a growth mindset and the mindset that you can continually change, then you're going to be far better prepared to be able to deal with a world of exponential change. And that's a lot of what we've seen, is that change is sort of the new normal, or as we say at Singularity, the new abnormal. We had a virus, then there's a war halfway around the world from the US, and then there's suddenly these new artificial intelligence tools that are transforming work and learning. And it's pretty likely that these what are called black swan events are going to continue. And so we need to have this mindset that we can continually grow and change. Skill set is the ways that we understand what our own capabilities are, the kinds of problems that we can solve, the kinds of skills we can bring to solve those problems. And then tool set, those are the techniques and the technologies that we use to be able to solve those problems. And so you can think about it next time you go into a session with other people. What is it, especially if you're planning to try to solve a problem? What's my mindset? How am I thinking about it? Do I believe we can solve this problem? What's the skill set that I bring? And that actually is one of the challenges. I've actually spent a significant amount of time through the years. One of the specialties when I was young and trained as a career counselor was actually focusing on women and reentry. And you might be interested to know that the problems and opportunities are exactly the same as they were 50 years ago when I was doing that. And you know the challenges.
Absolutely.
You've taken this time out. You've focused on, in many cases it's a family, but for whatever reason, you've taken this time out. And in the back of your head, you've got this concern that the clock is ticking and everybody else is learning and continuing to make themselves relevant and you're not. And the opposite is true. You actually have the gift of a timeout. You're developing completely different skills. You are not in the race of continually try to develop these skills. And instead, you've got an opportunity to re-examine those skills. You need to do that self-inventory that Rena was talking about, those 7 different facets of yourself. And then you can apply those to designing the kinds of scenarios, the kinds of work that you might want to do. And that's developing your skill set. And then the tool set is whatever you bring to be able to solve problems. In this case, the flower or the course that I mentioned, that's a tool set. That's a set of techniques to help you to solve particular problems. So as far as to Rena's question about what's coming, I am often called a futurist. I don't buy the title. I don't think anybody has a crystal ball. But I'll tell you the things that are likely is, first off, there will be these continuing black swan events. Today, it's artificial intelligence tools like ChatGPT, and tomorrow it's going to be something completely different. And I'm happy to give you some ideas of what some of those completely different things might be. But what we find is that the mindset that we encourage is that if things are going to continually change, what you can rely on is that you can develop a set of skills that will help you to continually solve new problems. And in the past, we focused on bodies of knowledge, what I call know skills, knowledge skills. And increasingly, we're needing to focus on skills that are usable in a range of situations, what I call flex skills. So what you've developed in whatever period you weren't focused on full-time immersive work, whether that was family or something else, you were developing skills, but without doing the self-inventory, you can't quite know what those are. But many of them are very flexible skills, usable in a range of situations: organizing, dealing with conflict when kids are fighting, managing budgets. But these are all skills usable in a range of situations. And what we find is that if you go through a process of self-inventory, the self-confidence issue really has two facets to it. The first is that you don't necessarily have the language of your own strength. And the second is that we often anticipate what we think the pushback is going to be from society. And when they look at what we've done and say, oh, well, you spent 10 years taking care of kids. And but my wife has a great example. So she'd been taking care of our child for 10 years. And my business partners called her up without my even knowing it and asked her to jump in on one of our projects and run one of our conferences. And at the same time, I got an opportunity to actually do a project with Google in 2005 when they were an itty bitty company. They had just gone public, and we started doing this project, big conference for Google. We ended up being consulting producers for 9 years. But at one point, one of our clients at Google, Heidi had solved a problem with very early versions of Google Docs. And the client, a person who's been working at Google for years, said, oh, how did you do that? And she had a light bulb going off saying, wait a minute, everybody's behind. Like nobody knows these technologies really well. I can jump in at any point and I can pick up from there. And I don't have to feel like I am 10 years behind. There's so many tools that are available to me to help me to be able to jump in at that point and to try to be as rapidly functional and able to solve problems as I possibly can be. So I'm going to stop there. I know Rena has some other questions, but I want to make sure you're talking about some of the different ways you can solve these problems, because the truth is you're actually bringing a tremendous amount of mindset, skill set, and tool set to solve problems. And it's just a matter of often understanding what those are and then seeing where those plug into the world of work to know where you can do your best work.
So well said, Gary. So well said. And looks like we need to bring your wife also sometimes to come and speak to us.
Absolutely.
How did she jump in and after 10 years? And in fact, the Google story that you just mentioned is very inspiring. And turning it around and said like, oh, I'm not behind and people are behind. I think that's a very interesting way to look at it. And that's the positive mindset we need to bring in. And that's what we talk about in our program, the transferable skills, the thing that we have been learning, and those skills are valuable. And as a matter of fact, those skills will be more valuable as the shift is going to the world of AI right now. And I think you have been doing 4 or 5, or is it like 4 newsletters already out on this topic?
The fourth one's going today. I've been writing a series in my newsletter on LinkedIn on artificial intelligence tools, and the one today is on education.
And wonderful. So everybody do take a look at all the, I follow Gary's posts, LinkedIn, anything and every content other than the LinkedIn learning courses. I still have to, I think I must have read everything that you have written so far.
Oh,
so very, very well done. So let's talk about as these skills, we talk about in the AI world, these soft skills, things that are not something AI cannot do. I think we have better opportunity for women who are learning these skills, and we are really good in those. So how do you suggest people to look into the skills that they bring to the table, but at the same time not be bogged down with how things are changing in the workplace? And back to your futuristic crystal ball, if you can open that up and tell us a little bit more on that, your thoughts.
All right. So first off, I'm asked by parents how will I know my kids will be okay. I'm asked by adults how can I think of the single most valuable thing for me as I'm trying to conceive of the kind of work that I want to do. And I have a very simple answer, which is the people that I've seen have been able to thrive the most effectively in going through any kind of life transition is when there is a North Star or a Southern Cross in their lives. And that can be different for different people. It's a fascination, a problem that you want to solve, a societal challenge that you want to address, a particular kind of population that you care the most about, something that fascinates you, something that disturbs you, anything that draws your attention that you feel you want to be able to have more of an impact or involvement in. And it's okay if you don't have that. Many of us go through periods in our lives where we sort of lose track of that, or where the context in which we might do that, and for instance, in work, if we've been focused on our kids for a while and now we're going back to work, well, we love the kids thing, but with work, I just don't know what that is. That's actually a problem to solve. That's a thing that we can each address. And so I think of them as a series of doors to enter. There's a lot of different doors to get to that place, that future that you want. Sometimes it's self-inventory. So there are people that will take my father's flower exercises and they will do them every single year. They'll update their flower. It's a sort of a picture of you, of the things that you care about, your skills, all prioritized and that sort of thing. And there are people that think of that as the door to enter. I want to continually have self-knowledge. There are people that find the thing, the problem in the world, or the challenge in the world, especially if it's community-based, that they most want to solve. And then they figure out, okay, and then what can my role be in solving that problem? There are others that find a cohort of people, and sometimes we call that a startup, or sometimes we call that a community nonprofit. But there are people that find a cohort and they together co-create what they're going to do to be able to solve a particular problem. There's all sorts of different doors to enter. What's really helpful is if you continually honor that part of you, and rather than just trying to look at what is available, what is out there, what kind of jobs you could get, what kind of work you think could pay the best, that's relevant if you absolutely are doing it for the money, and there's no judgment, if you have to do that at a particular point in your life. If you've got student debt, if you've got rent or mortgage to pay, if you've got to feed your family, then it's perfectly understandable. If the money considerations sort of shift it, well, then that becomes part of your North Star or Southern Cross. That's got to pay really, really well. I just wouldn't necessarily bias what you think you might be able to find or create in the world of work by what you think it might pay. Because the truth is that we often don't know what all the opportunities out there are. And so my father said there's sort of 3 steps: what, where, and how. And he used the analogy of a cart, a horse, and a road. And so he said, so you're going to go on a journey. What's in the cart? The cart is you. It's your skills, your knowledges, your values, the things that you love, the North Star, Southern Cross that you have. But if you have a cart, if you do that self-inventory, that self-knowledge, it can't go anywhere without being hooked up to something. Oh, that's the horse. So those are the scenarios in the world of work where you might use those unique skills and opportunities that you have. So, and those are often intersections of things. The greatest opportunities are often intersections of things. So let's say that you were interested in, and I'll just make up some really random thing. You were interested in space, you were interested in agriculture, and you were interested in architecture. Sounds like they're just totally different things you could never be able to find the Venn diagram, the intersection of. But it turns out that space botany is a thing. There are people that are designing what the vertical farms we would have on the moon would look like. That's literally a job. And so just use that as inspiration, that if there are 2 or 3 things that fascinate you, but you can't see what the intersection might be, that is an opportunity for that horse part, the where, to go do research and informational interviews to find where there might be places that you could use those intersections of the things that fascinate you. And then finally, you've got a cart, you've got a horse, you need a road. There's got to be a direction, a way to get there. And those are the techniques for job search. Most people want to start there. They want to write a resume. want to post on Indeed.com. But my father was always good at saying, no, start off with the cart, learn more about you, then do the horse, use research to find scenarios where you might use those unique capacities that you have. And then you focus on the specifics of the job hunt, getting the artifacts that you need, like a resume and that sort of thing, if you need them. But with your mindset that what you're doing is you're either trying to find or create meaningful, well-paid work.
Thank you. I think such amazing suggestions. I hope everybody's taking their notes and follow that. Let's turn the table around a little bit. I know your dad was so much focused on telling people how to prepare themselves and how to continuously evaluate themselves. But your focus has been, and through your book, you talk to many employers and many companies and you do workshops with them. Tell us from their perspective, what are they looking for in people when they are hiring? And what is your workshop when you go and do these workshops? What do you tell them? What is a brief of your workshop that you give in your company, in the companies?
So first off, as I'm fond of saying, remember when you were a teenager? Maybe there's some teenagers on here, or my teenage years were a long time ago. But for all of you, so remember when you were a teenager, and many of us, I know I thought this way. When I'm an adult, boy, I'm going to have solved so many problems. Like, boy, I just, I'm going to know how to run my life. They always seem like they know what they're doing, and then, oh no, that was a lie. And we perpetuate that lie because it benefits us as parents if they kind of think we know what we're doing. Because I think we don't know what we're doing, then we're in trouble. We're screwed. So we have to perpetuate it as long as we can. But it's the same thing with people who run companies. You see CEOs of companies, you see people in the C-suite, you see people, I don't use the word leader, I say people who lead, but I see people who lead companies and they think, boy, they must really have their act together. They make oodles of money. They've got thousands of people reporting to them. They don't know any better than you do. They really don't. In the same way that the journalists, I'm a recovering journalist, who write all the articles with quiet hiring and great resignation, they don't know what's going on either. They're just throwing titles out there and seeing if you're going to actually click on them. So people who run companies, they actually want to know some of the same things. The same questions that Rena was just asking. They want to know, tell me the future. Tell me what I should do to be constantly prepared for the future. How do I help people throughout my organization to be able to do that? And so the subtitle of the book is actually the mindset, skill set, and tool set to lead your organization through uncertainty, because that's the new abnormal. Things are uncertain. If we knew exactly what the world was going to look like in 5 years, we could plan for it, but we don't. And so instead, they want the mindset, skill set, and tool set that's going to help them to do that. And so it's actually a very similar set of functions in helping them to understand the kind of mindset. People often call this corporate culture, that they want to have, so that people are all sort of connected in what they're doing and they're all rowing their oars in the same direction. And they want to know what skill set, like what skills should we be encouraging people throughout our organization to be able to develop so that they can continually solve these problems. And they know that the shelf life of information is decaying so rapidly. They want to know how to be able to deal with that constant change, exponential change in so many industries. And then they want to know what tool set, what are the techniques, what are the technologies, something, these AI tools. How do we, one of my clients just emailed me, the CEO of a unicorn company that's growing just exponentially. And he said, Gary, we got to catch up. Tell me how these AI tools are going to either hurt or help me and help my organization. And so they don't know either. It's a very technical company that he's working with. And so they don't know either. And so what they want is they want somebody to give them these signposts, these ideas for how they can actually put these techniques into action within their organization.
Awesome. So I know we are getting close to our moderated Q&A time. So before I open up for others, what are the 3 actionable strategies that is in your book that today everybody can just put that as their way of working and learning? Just if you can summarize those 3 bullet points.
So I'm gonna sound like a broken record, but I'm gonna apply those 3 legs of the stool to different contexts. So
Okay.
if you are at a point in your life and your relationship to work where you are planning a new phase, then I would encourage you to do that step back process, maybe during meditation. But what is my mindset? Is my mindset that I have low self-confidence? I don't believe people are going to want to hire me. I don't know what I could possibly do. If that's your mindset, it's totally understandable. This is what life does to us. It disconnects us from work as we're doing other things, and it doesn't make it easy for us to reconnect. But that is a thing to focus on directly. And the things that we've found can be very helpful to develop that mindset. Our self-inventory, finding a coach, doing exactly as you're doing, as Rena has helped to gel a community that can support you. But you want as much as possible to be able to develop the mindset that you have tremendous value, which you do, that you have a tremendous capacity to be able to solve problems in the world, and that there will be a place, there'll be multiple places where you can actually apply that capacity to be able to solve problems and find meaningful or create meaningful, well-paid work. Second is, what's your skill set? So you want to make sure you are developing the skills. You have the skills that you most need to be able to solve those problems. And sometimes that might mean getting some additional schooling. In a lot of cases, it doesn't. And especially with these new AI tools, you're going to find there's certain problems you can solve much more rapidly than you would have otherwise. And then what's the tool set? You have to use my father's work. You can. Some people like Strengths Finders. Some people like the Design Your Life book. They think of these as just additional doors to enter. There's different ways, different techniques, different tools to help you to be able to go through that transition. And then if you found or created meaningful, well-paid work, same questions. What is your mindset nowadays? What skill set are you bringing? What do you need to continually develop with your skill set? And what are the tools that you believe can be most useful in helping you to be able to solve the problems of today and tomorrow?
Awesome. And I just looked at the link for eParachute. Looks like there is a cost, but you said we can get some discount and the.
Oh yeah, please just email Kirsty at admin at charette.us and we'll send you a code. So
okay. So one last question from me. What is again, less than a minute, what is one life lesson that you have learned that has, or I would say a failure that has turned into a life lesson? Much better way to ask.
Yeah, so I've got tons.
Everybody has that, right?
Yeah. So I thought at one point that I actually had traditional jobs for a good period of time, and I thought that when that stopped working, and I was just doing a bunch of projects, I thought, maybe this isn't the right way to be doing things. Maybe I should be, I should be going back to more traditional work and that sort of thing. And then I had an insight that I've actually applied in the book, and I realized, no, I have a range of different fascinations, and I hope that each of us does. And I also have what I think of as an advanced case of adult attention deficit. Everything fascinates me. And so I realized, well, you know what, if I can actually treat that as a strength, I can build what I now call a portfolio of work. And so what our managing partner and my wife have done is we have built a portfolio, and we have a range of projects that we do, from very high-end, long-term, lots of people, that we involve in those projects, to smaller, very pro bono things that we do to try to keep on having the impact that we want, and sort of a variety of things in between. It's a constantly changing landscape, but we have developed that portfolio of work in a way that actually allows us to balance the many different things that we want. And of course, there's precarity, like there's this, sort of up and down sort of thing, feast and famine. But we've gotten pretty good at managing that process. And so it allows us to be able to have a range of different fascinations that we can focus on. And she's much better at focus than I am. So I would argue again and again, we encounter these situations in our lives, the ability to step back, look at the learnings, and then realize we actually might be developing a new skill set to be able to manage our lives, our work in different ways, and to be able to honor those, and not just think, oh, that was a failure, or that I didn't take away anything that was valuable to me in my life, and instead to turn it around and say, no, wait a minute, this might be actually ways that I am building a new skill set to be able to interact in the world in a different way.
Awesome. So I am going to open up the Q&A for all of you to ask him. Feel free to unmute yourself or just put it in the chat. Madhu, you can, Madhu or SP, one of you can look at the chat if they want to put it in the chat. And before we end, we will have one giveaway for Gary's book, and we will ask one specific question. Whoever answers the first is the winner of that book. And you can answer that question in the chat. The first answer we receive, the first correct answer we receive is the owner of that book. So let's open it up, and I am going to take myself out of the spotlight. Actually, SP, if you can take me out of the spotlight and let Gary be there, and everybody, please feel free to open and ask any questions. And Gary, I love the portfolio career analogy that you just mentioned, and hopefully we all can continue to learn and work on the areas of multiple interests that we have, all of us have in our career.
Great. And I think there was a question, if a link will be provided to the recording.
Yes, the link will be provided, Mariam.
Who would like to jump in? There's always one brave soul. Oh, please, do.
Yeah, hi Gary, thank you so much for doing this with us. I watched a few of your videos on YouTube. So my question is, I just posted about portfolio career yesterday. I myself, see that I have a wide variety of things that I do, and how can I use all of that when I'm trying to get back to workforce? So I'm so thankful that Reena has this mom relaunch for all of us. As somebody who's trying to get back to work, who has this kind of a portfolio career, I myself with my work, how do I get back? Because when most people say that, hey, just focus on one thing and get it. And I'm somebody like who has several interests. I do so many things and it's been working well, but how do I get back to work?
So I want to make sure I'm being very, I should have said this at the beginning, because I don't have all the answers. I don't want to make it sound like I have any glib responses. It's just through my father's work and then my work, I've had the gift of being able to talk to so many people that are at these similar inflection points in their lives. So first off, it's a set of decisions, Madhu, in terms of what your priorities are, right? Because you can have lots of different fascinations. Some people love having hobbies or things that they do that they're not paid for. And then it goes into the context of work and they're paid for it. It's not as much fun. I know artists, designers who just want that to stay in a different bin. So one of the first things is to get some sense of an inventory of what are all the things that you like. Secondly, in Parachute, but I think it's in the course that I mentioned as well, we have a prioritizing grid. And so if you can look at a list of as many things that fascinate you, 10, 15, 20, whatever they are, and you can put them in order of priority automatically, that's awesome. If that's hard, then we have a grid that helps you to be able to go through that. So secondly, it's important to first to inventory them, get them out on paper. Secondly, to prioritize them. And then what we often do in the Parachute process, my father's process, is it starts off with the what, the self-inventory. And I always suggest to do the skills self-inventory too, not just the areas of focus or interest that you have, but your skills, all the, and the other parts of the pedal that Rena mentioned, just to get a full picture of yourself. Then you prioritize those. And then what we do as an exercise, when you shift from the what part, okay, I've got a good self-inventory. This is a good picture of me. I can put this flower on my, or whatever the image is, on my refrigerator. And that speaks to me, like, yes, I love all those things that are on there. Then you shift to the where part, and those are scenarios. And so you often, if you've done the prioritizing work, the topic or skills or knowledges or whatever it is, the thing you most want to make sure is involved in your work. And then there's a number 2 and a number 3 and a number 4. And what you do is you start to brainstorm, and you can do this as a team sport. You can do this with others in the book group. But you brainstorm, okay, what would a kind of work look like that used the top 3? What about the top 4? What about the top 5? What about the top 6? You just keep going until you sort of run out of ideas about what might be possible. But the reason I'd mention space botany is there's lots of people don't even know that's a thing. And so you don't want to filter and say, oh, there's no job that would allow me to do my top 10 things. There's no job in the world. Then maybe that's something you can create. Maybe that's something you can find an employer where they've got the top 6, and you can then pitch them, I also want these other 4 things in it as well. Or another scenario, maybe you break that up into different pieces, and you've got a 60% job that has 60% of what you want, and then the other 40% comes in 20% things that you do on the side. I say all the time, young people nowadays have figured out how to do a portfolio of work on their own. They might have a day job, but they're driving for Uber at night. They're working on a startup with their friends. That's a portfolio of work. Parents ask me all the time, why won't my kids get a real job? That's why. They know it's a world of exponential change. They don't know what is going to derive value for them in the future. It's a hedge strategy. So that's another way to approach it, is to develop a portfolio of work and then have projects. And then if one pops, oh, well, that's the thing that's going to make me the most money or give me the most satisfaction. Does that make sense? Okay, good.
Yeah, thank you for this clarity. Yeah, thank you so much.
Great. Other questions or thoughts? Shalini, you look like you've got an idea.
I have a question. Yeah, I have a question. Thank you, Gary. So, with women coming back from career breaks or switching careers, and now we are seeing more and more people, more and more companies promoting people coming back or coming to technical jobs or like highly skilled jobs with no college degrees.
Yeah.
What can companies do better to design jobs and build teams to be able to give space to all different kinds of talent?
So I have an admission to make. I don't have enough college to stuff into a thimble. So I'm often asked what my doctorate is in, which is pretty funny. ChatGPT, the AI tool, gave me an MBA from UC Berkeley that I don't even possess. I said, what's the biography of Gary Bolles? It had about 60% accurate stuff, and then it gave me an MBA from Berkeley, so that was easy. This is actually, so this is an area it's covered extensively in the book, and I talk a lot about this. So, and I often, I want to apologize, but I just want to say I often use different words for things because I want people to look at things differently. So hiring is a risk mitigation strategy. If you have a job opening, and if you knew that the next person that walked through the door was absolutely the perfect person for the job, you'd hire them. If there was zero risk, but there isn't zero risk any more than there is when we find the person that becomes our mate. So how do you dial down risk? Like, how do you manage risk? So the answer is we write these things called job descriptions, and we put all these requirements in them that just mean nothing. And they're often focused on tasks. The person will do this, and then they'll do that, and then they'll do that. And they're often written just by putting some, paint on the previous job description that the previous person had, because we want that person back. They quit on us. We've got an open job rec. We'll just use the same one. Maybe we'll get another, if it was Mary or Fred, we'll get another Mary or Fred. So you have to jettison, if you want to have more inclusive hiring, you have to just completely rethink the process, because it's all risk mitigation. How do you dial down risk? Well, you can dial it down on both ends and for all concerned parties. So if you don't write job descriptions in the language of tasks, but you instead write them in the language of the skills that are needed to solve particular problems, then what you do is you unmoor it, you unbuckle it from this traditional mindset of the number of years of experience, the degree that's required, and so on. Now, there are plenty of arenas where that can't be done, or where there are professional qualifications that are governed by laws. So in medicine, for instance, I don't want my brain surgeon to just watch a YouTube video and walk into the operating theater. I kind of want them to have a little bit more training, but there are ways to reduce that friction if we just change our mindset about what the requirements are in a work role. And so IBM just announced a couple weeks ago, 50% of all the job openings they have don't require a degree. And so that trend will only continue. There's a group out of the US called Opportunity at Work, and they have a great phrase: STARS, skilled through alternative routes. And so if you dial down the risk on this end, well, then what are the ways that you can then manage it? Apprenticeships, mentorships. There are startups that provide the software that let you take the top 5 candidates for a job and break up 2-week work projects for each one of them that you pay them for. So they get to try you out, and you can try them out. And so think of these as just risk management practices, because now maybe some of the candidates will pull themselves out and say, hey, this wasn't the job I thought it was. And maybe you'll find that there's a great match, just as if you were dating a variety of different candidates for a mate. And so these are all things that companies can do that change the infrastructure of risk management around work. And then for individuals, the more open we are to flexible work, and maybe our situation doesn't allow us to, but the more we can do projects, we can do apprenticeships. We're able to actually serve as mentors ourselves if we're inside an organization. We can actually manage that risk ourselves as candidates for work too. And I can give you plenty of examples of companies that do this. And because there's, in this era of flexible work, because the pandemic has broken the seal on how we think of one person, one job, one cubicle, and we've broken the seal on that for a lot of organizations, there's actually a lot more opportunities to be able to find or create work in that more flexible structure.
Yeah, and you raised a very good point about the job description. It's usually written by the HR people who don't understand the technicalities of the role. So
no.
Yeah.
So that's actually an opportunity. I say, look at writing. I don't use the word job description. Writing the requirements for the aspirations for a work role should be a team sport. It can't just be HR doing it off in a corner, or even the person who guides the team doing it off in a corner. It should be a team sport. The team knows what its superpowers are and what the needs are, and they should be part of the process of trying to determine who the kinds of characteristics of the most successful candidate for a work role might be. Other questions, thoughts, disagreements?
Any more questions from anyone?
I can go.
Okay. Yeah.
Hi, Gary. Thank you for being here. I'm Jaya. So my question is, so I am drawn to companies looking at their culture. And when I apply to jobs, I would look to see if that company's values matches mine. But in today's remote world, how can companies apply or translate their culture with their employees working remotely?
Yeah. One word, intentionality. So we used to take it for granted that if we all got together and we all sort of agreed, maybe not, the kinds of behaviors that we wanted, right? We slapped the label of culture on it and said we were done, right? Along comes the great reset of the global pandemic, and suddenly we had to become more intentional. So our 27-year-old son, I just had coffee with the company he works for. We actually know the woman is boss. She's got a team of 15 people, completely distributed. A couple of them come into the office once a week, but that's kind of it. And she has done a phenomenal job of building cohesion between the team because she's so intentional about it. So they do things like, there are startups that do this. They do cooking classes with everybody. The same ingredients are sent to everybody. They all bring the laptop into the kitchen and they all cook together. Now, some people think that's marvelous and a great way to keep a team together, and other people think that's a creepy intrusion on their personal life. So what is important is to workshop that, is to build these kinds of agreements between people. But I'll tell you, Jared, just a couple of quick insights. Most organizations don't have the slightest clue what culture they have. They just don't. And if you're an organization of any size, you definitely don't know. I don't even use the word culture. I talk about mindset, because mindset is nothing but the collective behaviors of people in an organization. And the people who lead organizations are reality distortion machines. When they walk into a meeting, everybody changes their behavior. And then when they walk out, they go back to whatever they were doing before. So it's really, how do people behave when they're not under observation, is what the real culture is. It's all about behavior. And so the thing that's most important is that, excuse me, that team guide, or the person that is guiding the work of a particular team, that they are the ones that you understand what their commitments are to the kinds of behaviors that they most want to see. And organizations that have a commitment to building that, workshopping that process of articulating the behaviors they most want, they see it as a journey and not as a result. Because the organizations that really understand what culture really is are the ones that know it's never a static state. It's always the same thing, a North Star or a Southern Cross for the organization. It's aspirational in what it wants to be as opposed to what it is today.
Wonderful. And we have just 1 minute left for our session. So I am going to start the question, or I'll just ask the question, and whoever responds the correct answer in the chat gets that book. And Gary, is it a physical book or ebook?
It's an ebook. Sorry, I'm out of hard copies.
Yeah. Okay. So, what was the name of the book written by Richard Bolles, who was Gary's dad? Okay. So, who was the first one to answer? What?
Like
Sindhuja. Sindhuja.
Yeah.
You are the one who get this book. So Madhu, can you get her email ID, and we can, Gary, email ID will work, right?
Yes, please. Yeah, that's what I need.
Okay, congratulations, Sindhuja. And you are the owner of ebook from Gary.
The reward's a fast typer.
Yeah, what is your fast typer?
Next time, ask ChatGPT, and then you can pop that in. So,
yeah. Yeah, the whole team gets a whole lot of lessons on ChatGPT and AI ever since. So I'm sure they have been, and I'm glad we had this session as well. So Gary, thanks once again. I'm sure everyone has learned the things that we is important. And while there was not a whole lot of things just specific to his book, but there is the book that What Color Is Your Parachute, and his growing up with that book and how that book has changed his perspective and what he brings to the table. There is so much. I mean, we can go on and on with Gary's sessions, and hopefully we can all learn from his LinkedIn Learning. Are those sessions free, Gary? I don't know. LinkedIn
So
Learning?
it's worth checking because
Uh-huh.
they're normally they're licensed by corporations. So and unfortunately I don't have any free codes for any of those courses, but they occasionally open up. It's courses like learning mindset and learning agility and managing change. The one that's going to post in a few weeks is called Skills for Leading the Future of Work. But I don't have any free codes for those, but you can watch because LinkedIn sometimes does promotions where it makes them available. Or if there's a school or a college that you are taking courses through, sometimes they have licenses for access to the LinkedIn library as well. And then I just want to make sure, here's my email address. If any additional questions or thoughts or concerns come up, please feel free to ping me directly.
Thank you. That's very generous of you, Gary, to offer this help. And everyone, please connect with him on LinkedIn. I am an avid follower of his content, especially the code newsletters that I've been tracking very closely. And so please, he's one of the most well renowned expert in the field of workforce. And again, a lot to learn from him. So Gary, thanks once again. Madhu, handing over to you, and hopefully you all have learned a lot in this session, and we will continue these sessions.